I almost signed over my entire business, everything I built with my bare hands for 37 years, because my son tricked me. And the only reason I didn't? At his birthday party, with champagne flowing and fake smiles everywhere, my granddaughter leaned in, squeezed my wrist and whispered, "Grandma, leave, right now." That was it. No explanation. Just fear in her eyes I hadn't seen since she was a little girl. And something in me knew. This wasn't just a party. This was a setup. I looked around. Chloe was laughing too hard. Nathan was checking the time. And upstairs, a man in a gray suit waited by the railing like he had paperwork ready. They didn't expect me to notice. They didn't expect Lena to speak. But I followed her out that door, past the fake smiles and the gold-rimmed shrimp skewers, straight into the cold night air. And in the car, I asked her, "What's going on?" She wouldn't say much. Just, they had a plan. I stopped it. And suddenly, I saw it clear. They hadn't invited me to celebrate. They invited me to sign everything I had away. "I just need you to trust me," Lena said, her voice barely audible. And I did, because I remembered something no one else in that house ever gave me anymore. Lena had never asked me for anything. Not money, not favors, not forgiveness, only trust. So I drove her a few blocks to her friend's house. She got out without saying more, just gave me one last look, apologetic, protective, scared. I sat alone in my car for a long time afterward, staring at the porch light, glowing softly across my empty flower beds. The kind of quiet that usually comforted me now felt haunted. What almost happened back there? What had they tried to do? I didn't have answers yet, but my bones did, and they were shaking. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept circling the same question. What would they have done if Lena hadn't stopped me? By morning, I was pacing my kitchen, still wearing the cardigan I'd worn to the party. It smelled like Chloe's perfume. Sharp, expensive, suffocating. I pulled it off and tossed it in the laundry basket like it had betrayed me. The next day, I walked out to my car and just stared. All 4 tires were flat, not just flat, slashed, deep, angry cuts, roofing nails sprinkled around like confetti. I bent down and picked one up. It looked exactly like the kind Nathan kept in my shed when he helped with my roof repairs last year. I only let him do it because he begged for a way to earn back trust, and because I was tired. So tired of fighting. I called him that morning. "Nathan," I said, "someone slashed my tires." Long pause. Then, "Wow, that's random. Maybe some teenagers?" No cameras saw anything. But Mrs. Langley said she saw someone in my driveway around midnight. Said he looked a lot like you. He laughed. "Mom, Kemen, you think I'd do that?" I didn't answer. He sighed. "You've been acting weird lately." Weird. That's what he called it. Not cautious, not upset, just weird. I hung up. That's when I started seeing it clearly. The party wasn't a celebration. It was a setup. And the tire slashing? That wasn't vandalism. It was a warning. Stay in line. Don't ask questions. Stop digging. But they underestimated me. I might be quiet. I might be the lady who brings pies to the church potluck and clips coupons for cereal. But I wasn't stupid. I made tea, sat down at my kitchen table, and pulled out the brown manila folder I hadn't touched in 2 years. Inside, 30 years of tax filings, property deeds, small business loans, every bank transaction I ever made tied to helping Nathan. There it was, the Miami apartment, the failed crypto rig, the food truck disaster, $150,000 gone over a decade. And I had the receipts. He used to say, "Just one more chance, Mom. You won't regret it." He was right. I didn't regret giving him that last chance. I regretted every one before it. I flipped through old texts, emails, and then I saw it, an old message from Lena 2 years ago. "If anything ever happens, Grandma, keep your business papers somewhere safe, okay?" Back then, I didn't understand what she meant. Now I did. I called her. She picked up on the first ring. "Grandma?" I need to know, I said. What was going to happen at the party? She was quiet. I heard her swallow. They had lawyers upstairs. They were going to get you to sign something. Dad said he'd offer you champagne, ease you into it. They wanted control of your business. I closed my eyes. She continued, her voice shaking. They had 2 men waiting. Chloe said you wouldn't read it, that you'd trust him. I stood slowly. My knees wobbled. This wasn't paranoia. This was premeditated. They weren't waiting for me to die. They were trying to kill my freedom now, quietly, legally. And they nearly did. Except Lena whispered 4 words and saved my life. I sat alone that night in my living room, the kind of quiet that wraps around your chest like a wet towel. Suffocating. Still, the TV was on, but I wasn't watching it. I kept staring at a photo on the mantel. Nathan, 23, in his graduation cap and gown. Me standing next to him, hair too big from the wind, smiling like I believed in something. Back then, I did. He had ideas. Dreams. Big ones. He said he'd build a company that would change everything. I still remember the way he held my hands and promised, "I'll take care of you one day, Mom. You just wait." I waited. And I gave. The first time, it was a down payment on a small apartment in Miami. He was moving for a startup opportunity. It fell through in 6 months. Then it was a cryptocurrency venture. I didn't even understand what it was. He brought over diagrams and talked in circles, and I just nodded. That one drained his savings and mine. Next was the food truck. Fusion Comfort Food, he called it. Partnered with a man who's now in prison for identity theft. He lost everything, and I covered the debt just to protect my credit. Each time he'd come back with that same look in his eyes. Ashamed, but charming. He knew the script. "Just one more shot, Mom. This is the one." And I believed him, not because he was convincing, but because I wanted to. Because he was my son. And when you raise a child, you don't just raise them. You invest in them, hope in them. You build your whole identity around the idea that they will grow into something good. So every time he failed, it felt like I failed too. But this last time, this wasn't failure. This was theft. Intentional, cold, planned. That was the shift. And it broke something in me I didn't know could still break. I walked to my bookshelf and pulled down the binder I used when I first opened my business, 27 years ago. A tiny bookkeeping firm out of my garage. 1 card table, 1 used printer, and 1 ad in the local paper. Now it had 3 employees, steady contracts, and a name people trusted. I built that. Me. While Nathan played with get-rich-quick schemes and Chloe bounced between new hairstyles and newer handbags, I was waking up at 5 a.m. to sort tax filings. And now they thought they could trick me into signing it all away? No, not anymore. I wasn't just waking up from their scheme. I was waking up from years of pretending this family still worked the way it used to. That Nathan was just lost. That Chloe was just cold, not calculated. But Lena, she was different. She had risked everything by warning me. Her parents would punish her for it, maybe already had. And yet, she did it anyway. That night, I placed the graduation photo face down. I wasn't ready to throw it out, but I couldn't look at it either, because it wasn't just a picture anymore. It was a lie I had lived in for too long. It was the invitation that felt like an apology. Nathan called 3 days before his birthday. His voice was softer than usual. He always got that way when he wanted something. "Mom, Chloe really wants you at the party this year. Lena misses you." That last line hit me in the ribs. Misses me? I hadn't seen Lena in weeks. Not since the tense Easter brunch when Chloe made a snide comment about my sweater looking vintage in a sad way. Still, I said yes, because somewhere, deep down, I wanted to believe this might be the start of something better. That maybe Nathan had finally realized what mattered. That maybe Lena's warning, whatever it was, had shaken something loose in him too. The night of the party, I put on my navy dress. Not too formal, not too plain. I curled my hair a little, dusted on blush I hadn't touched in months. For a moment, I looked like someone who still believed in family dinners and second chances. Their house was bigger than I remembered, newly painted, the lawn manicured. A valet took my car. Inside was something between a wedding and a movie set, catered hors d'oeuvre, A champagne tower 3 tiers high, flickering candles, arranged like it was a gala. I felt underdressed and overaware. Nathan greeted me at the door, hugged me a second too long. "So glad you're here, Mom." He smelled like cologne and anxiety. Chloe appeared, all heels and sparkle. She kissed my cheek and immediately pressed a cocktail into my hand. "Try this. It's pomegranate with just a splash of gin. You'll love it." I hadn't said yes, but there it was in my hand. Cold, sweet, and somehow suspicious. I took a polite sip, then wandered toward the far side of the room, near the back doors, where it was quieter. That's when I noticed it. Nathan kept checking the time. He'd laugh with someone, then glance at his watch, nod subtly, look upstairs, whisper something to Chloe. I watched him from my corner, how he stayed just long enough to be seen, but never too long in one spot. Like a man waiting for a moment, only he and one other person knew about. Something was off. The guests didn't match the man I knew was struggling. Nathan hadn't been able to afford toilet paper last month. He'd called me about it, sounding humiliated. So how could he suddenly afford a party like this? Jazz quartet, signature drinks, gold-trimmed name cards on every place setting. It wasn't just expensive. It was theatrical. I looked around for Lena. Couldn't find her. Just more people in tailored jackets and heavy perfume. Then Nathan appeared again. "Mom," he said, touching my arm lightly, "come see the upstairs renovations. We've done some amazing things. I want your opinion." I opened my mouth to respond, but stopped. Because Lena appeared, out of nowhere. She stepped between us, looked up at me, eyes wide, unblinking, and said quietly, "Please don't go upstairs." Her voice was barely audible over the music, but it cut through everything else in the room. Then she grabbed my hand, tightly. I didn't ask questions, I just followed. I didn't leave right away. Lana and I stood by the sliding doors near the back garden, half in the room, half out of it, close enough to see everything, far enough to breathe. She wouldn't let go of my hand. Her grip was tight, like a child in a thunderstorm. I watched the party unfold from the shadows. Chloe floated between guests, smiling like a woman trying to convince the world, and maybe herself, that she belonged here, that this sparkle, this setting, this life was real. But her smile never lasted more than a few seconds. She kept glancing at the stairs, then toward me. Nathan paced the floor like a man walking an invisible edge. He stopped at the bar, pretended to laugh at something, checked his watch again. Twice, I saw him lean toward Chloe and say something. Her lips barely moved in response. Then she took another drink. And I noticed something else. No one was looking at Nathan. They were looking at each other, their phones, the food. The kind of guests who showed up for free champagne and good lighting, not because they loved the person being celebrated. This wasn't a birthday. It was a stage. And I wasn't the audience, I was the target. I whispered to Lena, "What were they planning upstairs?" She shook her head. "Not here, not now." I could see the fear in her posture, the tension in her shoulders. She was barely breathing. Then I noticed the man in the gray suit again. He had come downstairs, was now standing in the far corner near the hallway, talking to a second man I hadn't seen arrive. Both held folders, legal folders. They didn't touch the drinks, didn't mingle, didn't smile. That's when I felt it in my gut, deep and cold and certain. They were waiting for me to get comfortable, to get soft, to get drunk, to let my guard down. I leaned closer to Lena. If I'd gone upstairs, she looked at me, and her eyes filled with tears. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. I saw it all. I saw how far Nathan had fallen. I saw Chloe's desperation, how hard she clung to the illusion of wealth. I saw how they dressed the party up to look like love. But it wasn't love. It was leverage. They didn't invite me to honor me. They invited me to finish me off. I took one last look around the room. The laughing strangers. The soft music. The champagne tower twinkling like bait. Then I turned to Lena and nodded. We didn't say goodbye. We didn't need to. We just walked. Out the back door, down the stone path, past the string lights and the rented fountain. My heels clicked softly behind Lena's sneakers, and with every step, I felt my spine straighten a little more. They thought I was too old to see the play, too soft to fight back, too trusting to question the champagne. They were wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even lie down. I stayed at my kitchen table with a legal pad, 2 mugs of tea gone cold, and a rising fire in my chest I hadn't felt in years. The kind of fire that says, no more. By 3 a.m., I had every manila folder spread out in front of me. 3 decades of paperwork, receipts, loan agreements, tax returns, handwritten promissory notes Nathan never honored, and that one crumpled contract from 6 years ago, when I co-signed a business line of credit to help him get back on his feet. I had believed him then. I believed he just needed one more push. But when I found that line of credit had been maxed out and closed without a single payment made, I said nothing. I remember crying into a dish towel so Lena wouldn't hear. I didn't even confront Nathan. I just paid it off. Because shame can feel heavier than rage. But now I wasn't crying. I was documenting. I circled dates, highlighted names, made copies of everything I could find connected to my business. Ownership records, EIN registration, tax ID, and the operating agreement I had rewritten by hand after my late husband passed. I wasn't just trying to understand what they tried to do. I was gathering ammunition. Just before sunrise, my phone buzzed. Lena, I answered immediately. Sweetheart? Her voice was hushed, like she was hiding. Grandma, they were going to do it. They had 2 men upstairs. Lawyers. Chloe told them you'd be in a good mood after the champagne. I closed my eyes. They had papers ready, she said, to transfer your business into a new holding company, one that Dad controls. I nearly dropped the phone. It wasn't just a plan. It wasn't something they were thinking about doing. They had already started. I gripped the counter with my free hand. I overheard them rehearsing it, Lena whispered. Dad said if you signed, you'd never even realize it until it was done. Chloe said your memory's been getting patchy and that it would hold up in court. My knees buckled. I sat down fast before I collapsed. My son, my own son, was preparing to paint me as mentally unfit, just to steal what I built. To the rest of the world, I was still the nice grandma who handed out chocolate chip cookies and paid for everyone's dental plans. But to him, I was a signature, a doorway, an inconvenience to be legally removed. I could feel my heartbeat in my teeth. Thank you for telling me, I managed to say. I'm scared, she whispered. They're going to know I warned you. I steadied my breath. You did the right thing, I said. And now it's my turn. We hung up. I stared at the phone like it had become something new. A weapon. A lifeline. I reached for my business file, tucked deep in the bottom drawer, the one with the incorporation date, my official title, and the original signatures. Still intact. Still mine. Not anymore, Nathan. Not anymore. The next morning, I didn't put on grief. I put on armor. Navy slacks, pressed, pearl earrings. The same gray trench I wore to court when I fought for custody of Nathan all those years ago. I looked like someone who belonged. And I had a plan. Chloe worked at a sleek firm downtown, Pinnacle Financial. Wealth management for people who already have too much. She'd always bragged about her client portfolio, but she never once mentioned how she got it. Now I had a feeling I was about to find out. I walked into the lobby at 10:12 a.m., clipboard in hand, posture tall. The receptionist barely glanced up. Can I help you? I put on my warmest, most clueless grandma smile. Yes, dear. I'm looking for Chloe Weston. I'm one of her older clients, but I forgot my appointment time. The receptionist froze for a moment, then looked down at her computer. Chloe's not in. Oh, is she working remotely? No, she's actually on leave. Something about a compliance issue. That word. Compliance. It didn't mean vacation. It meant we're investigating something. I leaned in just a little, as if I didn't understand. Is she all right? She seemed so busy last week, so many forms to file. The girl frowned. Did she handle something for you recently? I smiled again. Oh, just a little transfer. She said she'd need signatures later. That was enough. The girl's eyes changed. Just a flicker. But it told me everything. This wasn't about me. I wasn't the only one. I thanked her, turned, and walked out with my heart pounding against my ribs like it was trying to break free. Back in the car, I sat with the engine off, staring at the storefronts across the street. Coffee shop, salon, an insurance office with balloons taped to the window. How many people had Chloe targeted? People like me. People who trusted her because she married into our family. Or maybe just people who were too polite to question a clipboard and a smile. I remembered the two lawyers from the party, the way they didn't drink, the folders they carried. They weren't just there for me. They were professionals. And this wasn't just a birthday. It was a blueprint. Nathan may have been the face, the desperate son playing at reconciliation, but Chloe was the machine. She knew the paperwork, the loopholes, the tone to take with an aging woman who means well, but shouldn't be managing things alone. My name, my business, my life, filed under transferable assets. I gripped the steering wheel. They weren't just trying to take what I had. They were building a life on top of my grave, before I was even dead. I started the car, my fingers trembling. I wasn't just dealing with family now. I was dealing with something bigger, a pattern, maybe a crime, and I was going to stop it. Even if I had to burn every bridge they thought I'd never cross. I pulled into my driveway, turned off the car, and just sat there. The air was thick with silence. But in my head, everything screamed. I had spent years excusing Nathan's failures, years smoothing things over, loaning money, telling myself, he means well. But Chloe? She didn't even bother pretending. She knew exactly what she was doing. And I knew exactly who I had to call next. The first number I dialed was Martha. Miami, 2014. Nathan had begged me for help getting her to invest in a rental property with huge potential. He told me she'd already agreed, just needed someone to vouch. So I did. And 6 months later, the property turned out to be a condemned duplex near a sinkhole. He vanished. She lost $25,000. She picked up on the second ring. Martha, it's me, Eleanor. Silence. Then, what happened now? I told her. Not everything, just the pieces I could say out loud without breaking. She didn't hesitate. You need backup? I'm in. Then I called Diana, the crypto disaster. Nathan had convinced her it was the next big thing, right before the market tanked. She had to sell her car to pay her mortgage. When I said his name, she laughed, short and bitter. Let me guess, another scheme? I told her about Chloe, the lawyers, the business transfer. She went quiet, then said, send me everything. Next was Patricia, sweet Patricia, who once loaned Nathan money for a food truck and ended up with a lien on her house. She still answered like I was family. I told her the whole story, how they nearly got me to sign, how Lena stepped in, how I had folders full of documents but needed more. Patricia didn't just agree to help. She told me something that made my skin crawl. I work with a woman whose father's estate was drained by a financial advisor named Chloe. Same last name, different state. My breath caught. It really was bigger than me. This wasn't just my family's collapse. This was Chloe's career. And Nathan? He was just the idiot she dragged along behind her. That night, I scanned every document I had and emailed it to the women. I labeled folders, property, forgery risk, text evidence, past loans. Each woman responded with her own files, notes, screenshots, old text messages from Nathan, with the same lines. This one's different. Just one more push, and I'm there. Help me prove myself. It was like he had a script. We shared everything, built a timeline, a pattern. It wasn't just heartbreaking. It was prosecutable. By midnight, I was no longer alone. I was part of something stronger than grief, a reckoning. I sat back in my chair and let the weight of it settle in. My house was quiet. My tea was cold. But for the first time in weeks, I felt solid, planted. They had tried to make me doubt myself, my memory, my mind. But now I had proof, and I had witnesses, and I had women who still carried their scars, but were finally ready to fight back. The next call from Lena came 3 days later. It was just past noon. I was clipping dead leaves off my rose bushes when my phone rang. I saw her name, and my heart dropped. I picked up quickly. Lena? Her voice was low and fast, like she was talking through a crack in a door. They're fighting, Grandma. Bad. I stood up straight. Your dad and Chloe? Yes. He yelled at her this morning. Called her reckless. Said she went too far at the party. He kept saying, I told you not like that. She said something about fixing it fast before my mom wakes up. That's how they talked about me, like I'd been sleeping through my own life. Lena continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I think Chloe's work found out. She got an email yesterday and slammed her laptop shut. Then she cried in the bathroom for like an hour. I closed my eyes. Good. Let it begin. Let them feel even 1 ounce of what they put others through. The panic, the loss, the shame. They're blaming each other now, Lena added. Dad keeps saying this was her idea. She said he wanted the business, that she just helped. Of course they did. Cowards never fall alone. They drag each other down, screaming. I went inside and poured myself a glass of lemonade. My hands were steady this time. Have they said anything about you? I asked her. No, not yet. I've been keeping my head down. They think I went along with everything. I smiled. Smart girl. That call told me everything I needed to know. Their house of cards was leaning, and I hadn't even pushed yet. That night, I got a call from Patricia. She'd gone digging deeper through her contacts and found an old colleague at Pinnacle Financial, someone who knew Chloe professionally. She filed 2 asset reassignments under a false client signature last year, Patricia said. One of them was reversed. The other wasn't. That client is still trying to sue, but Chloe had protection back then. Had? I said quietly. Exactly, Patricia replied. Not anymore. Word is, her name's showing up in risk reports, internal flags. It was all happening faster than I thought it would, because the thing about people like Chloe is they don't plan for fallout. They plan for applause. She thought I'd sign, smile, maybe get confused and thank her later. Nathan thought I'd cry for a few weeks and forgive him again, just like I always had. But I didn't cry. I documented. I shared. I prepared. The next morning, I took a photo of my business registration, the folder of gathered evidence, and the original operating agreement with my signature in black ink. Then I texted it to my lawyer, along with one line, "Let's make this official." It came through email, no subject line, no greeting, just a message from a name I didn't recognize, A. Solis. Inside were 3 attachments. The first was a scanned document, a business asset transfer form, filed under my name, signed by me, except I never signed it. The second attachment was worse. It was the application to form a new LLC, titled Weston Legacy Holdings. Nathan's name listed as managing director, filed 2 weeks ago. The third attachment, an internal compliance note from Pinnacle Financial. Flag discrepancy in signature authorization. Client Eleanor J. Weston appears unaware of recent filings. Escalation pending. I sat very still. The screen glowed cold against my face. They hadn't almost stolen from me. They had already started. Behind my back, beneath my nose, using my name, my trust, my silence. They'd forged my signature, filed real documents, opened a company under my son's name, using assets that belonged to me. And Chloe? She didn't just help. She led it. This wasn't sloppy. It was professional. It had templates, timestamps, tracking numbers. They had practiced, planned, anticipated my confusion. Because they never thought I'd question, never thought I'd see the threads, never thought Lena would speak, and certainly never thought someone inside Pinnacle would betray them. I called Patricia. I got proof, I told her. Her voice cracked with something close to triumph. So did we. Martha had confirmed another falsified document. Diana found her name listed as a silent investor in one of Nathan's bogus LLCs from 2018. We hadn't just built a case. We had a damn library. I called my lawyer, Stephen. Quiet, sharp, and methodical. He didn't gasp or flinch when I forwarded him the files. He just said, "They're in trouble, and they're not going to like what happens next." Good. I didn't want them to like it. I wanted them to feel it. Every bit of what they tried to make me feel. Used, discarded, powerless, Stephen drafted a cease and desist that same day. He also filed notice with the state board for Chloe's industry, submitted the forged documents, notified their firm's legal departments, attached sworn statements from me and Lena, plus everything the other women had sent. We didn't just build a wall, we built a trap. And now, I was done waiting. I picked up the phone. Nathan answered on the third ring. Sounded tired, edgy. Mom? Hi, sweetheart, I said calmly. We need to talk, just the three of us. You, Chloe, and me. Tomorrow. My house. He agreed. I cleaned my dining room that night like it was sacred ground, wiped the table twice, polished the teacups, laid out cloth napkins like I was hosting a church lady luncheon. The scent of lemon oil filled the room. But this wasn't a social call. It was a reckoning. In the center of the table, I placed a small stack of documents, the cease and desist, the evidence binder, a neatly typed list of violations. My lawyer Stephen arrived an hour early. He came to the back, as planned. No briefcase, no tie, just a soft-spoken man with a steel-trap memory. He sat quietly at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, reviewing his notes while I reheated a lemon loaf. It was surreal, offering pastries to a man who was about to help me dismantle my own child's lie. But that's the thing about motherhood. You get used to making uncomfortable things look polite. At exactly 3 p.m., I heard their car. Nathan walked up first, shoulders back, wearing a crisp shirt he hadn't ironed himself. Chloe followed in black sunglasses. Despite the cloudy sky, they looked like a couple walking into a will reading, which, in a way, they were. I opened the door. Mom, Nathan said, half smiling, you look nice. Thank you. Come in. They sat at the dining room table like they'd done dozens of times before. But this time, the air between us was different. Chloe glanced at the documents in the center. Her jaw clenched. Nathan looked around, trying to play casual. So, what's this about? I poured the tea. Let's talk about paperwork, I said, gently placing a porcelain cup in front of each of them. Chloe didn't touch hers. I sat down across from them. And for a moment, I looked at their faces. My son. The boy I once held through night terrors. The man who now filed fake documents to steal from me before I was cold on the ground. And Chloe, his mirror. All ambition, no conscience. Her expression tight, eyes flickering from document to document, already calculating an exit. I let the silence stretch. Then I slid the cease and desist forward. Nathan stared at it. What's this? An end, I said, to whatever you thought you were getting away with. His mouth opened, but Chloe spoke first. We were going to talk to you about it. Eventually, I tilted my head. Talk to me? About falsifying my signature? About opening a company under my son's name using my business assets? Her face twitched. Nathan shifted in his seat. This is being blown way out of. No, I cut in calmly. This is what it looks like when people finally say no to being manipulated. I stood, walked to the kitchen door and opened it. Stephen entered, quiet, professional, and holding a folder. Nathan's face drained. Chloe finally took off her sunglasses, and I finally stopped pretending I didn't see what they were. Nathan looked like a boy caught with his hand in the cookie jar, except the jar was my life savings, and the cookie was my name on forged documents. He leaned back in the chair, arms crossed. You ambushed us. No, I said, voice steady. I invited you to talk. Stephen placed the folder gently on the table. Ms. Weston has reviewed all documents tied to Weston Legacy Holdings, including the ones filed without her consent. Chloe didn't blink. She reached for her purse. We didn't file anything yet. Would you like to see the time-stamped documents? Stephen asked, flipping open the folder. Chloe hesitated. Her hand froze on the clasp. I looked her dead in the eye. You forged my signature, Chloe, or had someone do it. That's criminal. Nathan jumped in. Mom, we never meant to hurt you. You just meant to replace me. He exhaled hard, like he'd been holding back something. It wasn't like that. We just thought it would be easier if the business was in my name. You're getting older. There it was, the script. the gentle phrasing of betrayal. I raised my voice, not loud, but clear. Don't you dare hide behind my age. I've run that business longer than you've kept a job. Stephen slid a second paper across the table. This is a statement of intent to pursue civil damages if further unauthorized activity occurs. You've been formally served. Chloe's lips parted slightly. I could see the calculation flicker behind her eyes. She wasn't used to losing. Then she reached for the paper. Nathan, she said sharply, say nothing. He looked stunned. Wait, what? She turned to him, voice low but cutting. This is real, and you're the one who said your mother would never press charges. Stephen raised an eyebrow. We haven't pressed charges yet, but Pinnacle's compliance team has been notified, and we've submitted the documentation to the state attorney's office. The blood drained from Chloe's face. Nathan's bravado broke in two. You didn't have to go this far, he said to me, barely above a whisper. You're my mother, and you were my son, I replied. He flinched. Were? I stood up. My knees popped. I didn't care. Every time you asked for help, I gave it, even when it cost me, even when it humiliated me. I let you take and take, because I thought that's what mothers do. I leaned forward. But mothers don't raise sons to become thieves. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was final. I turned to Stephen. I think we're done here. He nodded. Nathan stood slowly. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Chloe rose next, her movements robotic. She didn't make eye contact. They walked out of my house in silence. Not a single word of apology, not even a glance back, just footsteps. Then the door, then nothing. I sat back down and breathed for the first time in what felt like weeks, not because it was over, but because it had finally begun. They thought the worst was behind them when they walked out my front door, but I still had one card left to play, one that would make sure they'd never recover from this. Because for once, I'd stopped hoping they'd change, and I started proving what they were. The next morning, I called Nathan again. Told him I had one more thing to show him, something he deserved to see. We already talked, he muttered. We haven't finished, I said. Come alone, no Chloe. He came. Not because he wanted to, because he was afraid of what I knew that he didn't. This time, we sat at the smaller table in the sunroom. No tea, no cake, no pretense. I opened my phone and placed it face down in front of me. He glanced at it. What's this? I met his eyes. Lena recorded you. At the party. He blinked. What? Not everything. Just enough. Enough to hear Chloe rehearsing what she'd say if anyone questioned my mental clarity. Enough to hear you say I was fragile. That I'd probably forget I even signed. His jaw clenched. I kept going. Lena sent it to me the day after the party. She said she didn't want to, but she couldn't live with herself if she stayed quiet. You used her, he said bitterly. No, I listened to her, something you haven't done in years. I pressed play. The voices crackled through the speaker. Chloe's clipped tone, rehearsed and icy, just emphasized that she's been having memory problems. Say she asked for help managing her accounts. Then Nathan's voice. She'll sign, especially after 2 drinks. She trusts me. He reached for the phone. I pulled it back. Too late, Nathan. My lawyer has it. The board at Pinnacle has it. And the women you scammed before? They've heard it too. He stood up fast, knocking the chair back. You think you've won? I stayed seated, calm. No, Nathan. I think I stopped losing. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. You're blowing this up. For what? Because I needed help? I stood slowly. You didn't need help. You needed control. You wanted my life's work without the work, without the responsibility. He spun to face me. You think you're better than me? No, I said. I think I'm finally done protecting someone who would throw his own mother into the dirt for a checking account. He went quiet. Something in him cracked right then. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the last sliver of illusion that he could still talk his way out. I should have never told Lena, he muttered. You didn't, I said. She saw you for what you are, and she chose truth over comfort. He turned toward the door. You just lost your son. I didn't answer. Because he was wrong. I hadn't lost him that day. I lost him the first time he lied with a smile and took what wasn't his. I just finally stopped pretending I hadn't. The first ripple came through my lawyer. Stephen called at 9:13 a.m., calm as ever. It's done, he said. Filed, submitted, and acknowledged, and we're not the only ones making noise. I leaned forward, listening. Pinnacle's internal legal team received the documents, the audio, and Lena's statement, he continued. They're moving quickly. How quickly? There was a pause. Then, Chloe's name isn't on their staff roster anymore. I didn't smile. Not yet. Because I knew people like Chloe. She didn't fall quietly. By noon, the second crack split wide open. Patricia called, giddy and breathless. Check Facebook. Now. There it was. A local group post with thousands of views. Anyone else know what Chloe Weston did to her own mother-in-law? Financial abuse. Forgery. Arrest incoming. The comments were fire. She managed my mother's account. Pulling our money out today. Weston family has always seemed shady. Now we know why. Martha sent a private message from a retired banker in town. You're not the first person they tried this with. People were talking. Loudly. Not because I said anything, but because I'd finally stopped staying quiet. That afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Eleanor? It was Chloe's boss. Cold voice. Legal tone. I'm informing you this call is being recorded. The compliance team at Pinnacle Financial is conducting a formal investigation. We are requesting the original audio and documents you referenced in your filing. Already sent, I said. He paused. Then, quietly, thank you for doing the right thing. I hung up. It felt like something sharp had been pulled from my chest. By dinner, I knew it had hit Nathan. He called 4 times in a row. No voicemail, just silence. The 5th time, he left one. Mom, call me back, please. I didn't know it would explode like this. Explode? That wasn't the sound of a family breaking apart. That was the sound of his world collapsing, because he built it on sand and assumed I'd never bring the tide. I didn't call back. I forwarded it to Stephen, then blocked the number. At 9:07 p.m., Chloe called. She didn't scream. She didn't even fake sweetness. She just said, "You've made this a public spectacle." I stayed silent. Then she spat it out. "You humiliated us." Still silent. She waited. For what, I don't know. Regret? An apology? Permission? I gave her nothing, because the only thing they feared more than exposure was silence. She finally said, "You're going to regret this." And I said I already regretted every time I let you talk me into trusting you. Lena stayed with me for a while. Her parents called it rebellion. I called it survival. She helped me box old files, clean out the attic, label storage bins. One night we sat on the porch, her head on my shoulder, watching the light fade. She asked, "Are you really okay, Grandma?" I thought about it, about the years I'd spent cleaning up after Nathan's disasters, always hoping he'd come home better. About the nights I cried into my pillow because motherhood made me feel like a fool. And about how this time, I didn't cry. This time, I acted. I looked at Lena. I am now. She nodded, small and brave. I don't want to be like them. I took her hand. You won't. Because you listened. Because you spoke. Because you knew the difference between love and manipulation, and you picked the harder thing. She leaned into me. I didn't want them to get away with it. I smiled. They didn't. I didn't get a happy ending. I got something better. Clarity. Boundaries. Peace I built myself. I lost a son. But I kept the one who truly saw me. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know which city you're watching from. I'd love to see how far this story travels. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out my other videos.